I'm Dave Baker.
And I'm Spandrew Spice.
Welcome to Deep Cuts, the podcast where we pick a topic and walk you through the ins, outs, and nitty-gritty, so you can appear like an interesting and or idiosyncratic person at your next forced social function. Today's topic is...
Jay-Z Knight.
Who is Jay-Z Knight? Well, she's a cult leader, channeler, and medium who swindled people out of their money, broke up families, and directly contributed to multiple people dying or being sexually assaulted. She also claims to be able to psychically speak to a dead Atlantean from 35,000 years ago. So, you know, that's cool.
Welcome to Deep Cuts into Deep.
Act 1. There's gotta be a Knight Rider pun in there somewhere.
South of Seattle, in the misty farmland of Yelm, Washington, Jay-Z Knight is enjoying her little slice of heaven.
Aren't you beautiful? Look at you.
Jay-Z likes to pamper her Arabian horses. They trot around a 50-acre pasture and come back to a stable nicer than most homes. Most, but not all. Past the stable and the Rolls-Royce, Jay-Z is building a huge mansion, the biggest ever in these parts. No doubt about it, this is some house. When it's finished, it'll have 6 fireplaces, 9 bathrooms, a sauna, a spa, and a pool. Of course, this is an expensive lifestyle to maintain, so every couple of weeks, Jay-Z leaves here and goes off to work. Hers is a job that requires body and soul.
I know this is like so off topic, and we just started the episode, and this is just way too quick to just get into some non sequitur. But I just have to say that, apropos of nothing, that reporter was dressed like McGruff the crime dog for some reason. That's it. I just had to point that out. It was just like it was Chekhov's gun. Like
Chekhov's McGruff the crime dog.
That you're here. We're very happy to be here.
She greets an audience like this one in Denver, and then she leaves, changes her hair and her clothes, comes back, and goes into a trance. And finally, after several minutes, this 40-year-old woman says she has turned into a 35,000-year-old man.
Indeed.
The voice seems different, the face seems different. Supposedly she is now a he, Ramtha, or the Ram as his followers call him. Now the story goes that Ramtha lived in the lost land of Atlantis, where he was a great warrior.
And I was the biggest bastard of them all. But I was the great conqueror, the Ram, that meant the god. And I slaughtered and hacked because I was a barbarian that was filled with anger and ignorance.
But the legend goes on to say that the Ram finally rejected violence for virtue and became a wise, enlightened teacher. Well, if you believe all that, you'll believe Jay-Z Knight when she says that Ramtha decided to come back 35,000 years later in 1977.
I thought I was seeing things because I had tears in my eyes, and I wiped the tears away, and here stood this entity at 2:30 in the afternoon in my kitchen, and I wasn't afraid. I was just shocked. This doesn't happen.
It does if you're what Jay-Z says she is, a channel. They used to call them mediums. Channels say they can summon forth long-dead spirits from other dimensions. Channeling is a phenomenon of the 80s. There are hundreds of them, but the most popular is Jay-Z Knight, who says that on command, she can make Ramtha appear. What happens to Jay-Z Knight when Ramtha's speaking?
I actually abdicate my body, and it's like dying because I do go through a tunnel, and I go through another. I'm going to a light, and the moment I hit that light, I come back.
And Jay-Z claims that while she's gone, she's unaware of what Ramtha's doing. And what he or she is usually doing is preaching for hours on end.
I have come to teach you to wake up from the intimidation back into the sweetness of what is you.
If you find that message confusing and the whole idea of Ramtha preposterous, meet some people who beg to differ.
When Jay-Z Knight comes out and she is Ramtha.
Judy Zebra Knight, originally Judith Darlene Hampton, was born March 16th, 1946. She was reportedly raised in poverty. She was raised in a town of Artesia, New Mexico. She led an average life. She was voted prettiest girl in school by her high school classmates.
Okay, first of all, I did not know she was from Artesia, New Mexico. That's like a little holdover town in New Mexico that wasn't far from Roswell. Nothing significant ever came from Artesia, except for apparently fucking Judy Zebra Knight. That's what Jay-Z Knight stands for?
Judy Zebra Knight.
Judy Zebra Knight?
Judy Zebra Knight, bro.
I don't even understand it. Like, Jay-Z Knight was like, first of all, I always like, it's one of those things where in my mind, for some reason, whenever I hear Jay-Z Knight, I mix it up with Brian McKnight. And I just think, like, when I hear Jay-Z Knight, I'm just like, 1, repeat that 1 through 3 to make it fall in love with me. Whenever I believe my work is done and I start it back at 1. But like Jay-Z Knight sounds like, oh, like it's like supposed to be this kind of like culty type name or whatever. Like it sounds kind of mystical in a way or whatever. But Judy Zebra Knight? What is the rationale of making your middle name Zebra?
She changed it to that. It wasn't that originally.
No, I mean, if that was just her birth name, then it's like, okay, she just has a weird name. But she changed her name to Judy Zebra Knight. What is the rationale of that?
Fuck if I know, man. You want to describe these two photos of her as a young woman in high school in Artesia, New Mexico? I mean,
pretty straightforward. She looks like she's just a normal looking gal. This photo on the bottom is just kind of like, it looks like it's like a crop of her face, but it looks like maybe it's from a school photo or something like that, like kind of like a professional-ish looking picture. She's all done up in makeup. She looks like a totally normal person. Even in this top photo, it's kind of like a candid picture. Looks like it also might be from like a yearbook or something like that. But it's kind of like her. It's like candid and kind of like sassy. It's just like, oh, I'm just sitting here doing my paper, and I'm just gonna look at the camera with this like goofy face. Like we're palling around behind the scenes.
Yeah, she's got like a buffanti, like, 60s haircut.
Oh yeah. She looks like my grandma for sure. This is the exact hairstyle my grandma had. And she is around the same age as my grandma would have been at this point, and she's almost from the same. I think this might be my grandma.
Your grandma was she faked her death and became JC Knight? What?
Wait a minute. Spandrew orangutan spice? It all makes sense now.
It all makes so much sense.
But yeah, it actually goes to something that I was going to say before, which is, I mean, maybe we'll talk about this more later, but like one of Judy Zebra Knight's biggest like assets is because you see these cult leaders or these like mystical fucking gurus or whatever. And, they kind of either have one of two things going for them. They're either this like charismatic sort of like larger than life type person where you really are meant like the intention is you're looking at them in awe and you're just like, this person is amazing. They're more than human. And then you have the people who are just like fucking nuts. They're just like, this person is fucking insane. They ooze this like chaotic, neutral tiger energy. And you're just like, this person is fucking insane. And Jay-Z Knight's, her assets are like the dichotomy between how normal her regular self seems. Like just in interviews, she just seems like a regular person. You would never get any indication that she's like a weird cult leader who embodies a fucking ancient spirit or whatever. She seems like a dog trainer. Like she's got dog trainer energy to her. And then the Ramtha self is like over the top ridiculous to the point where it's just goofy. It's not like
Ramtha feels like a rejected character from like a community college comedian's bit, you know what I mean? Or like a play, you know?
It's so over the top and goofy, and it's almost like the interplay between those two extremes that makes it work. Because you're just like, she's so normal seeming that you don't suspect her of being crazy enough to fake that. I mean, I do for sure, but people, her normal self is so normal and straight laced and seeming like this, like sort of put together, slightly affluent mom that like it almost like apologizes for the ridiculousness of Ramtha to where you're just like, I feel like this might be real because I don't think that lady would be this fucking crazy. And it like offsets it. So she can go to like wild extremes with Ramtha because you're just like, I'm kind of buying it because I feel like she just wouldn't be so crazy to make this shit up.
However, things were not quite exactly as placid beneath the icy exterior of this seemingly normal young woman. Jay-Z's closest friend in high school was a young woman named Sandy Fallis. Fallis has gone on record saying that one night at a prayer meeting, the young knight started speaking in tongues. Knight identified herself as a demon named Demias. Demias?
Okay, Dave. Okay. I excuse me if I am just completely like in fucking third grade, but Sandy Fallis, you're just gonna go past that name? Judy Zebra Knight and her best friend Sandy Fallis. And you're just gonna say that like you're gonna say that like it was.
I was trying to just move through it, man.
Like it was Sandy Smith.
Knight identified herself as a demon named Demias.
She couldn't breathe. She was holding her neck and saying, "I can't breathe." At that point, a male's voice spoke out. He said, "I have possessed this body and you cannot have it. I have possessed it for many years." Also, Sandy Fallis?
When asked about it in interviews, Jay-Z Knight has said that it didn't happen.
That's not my truth. That's someone else's truth.
She said. After graduating high school, Jay-Z Knight dropped out of business school to work at a local cable television station. According to her autobiography, she was told by a psychic that an enlightened one would find her in Tacoma, Washington. It was there, in her kitchen, in 1977, that she claimed to be visited by what would become Ramtha.
Can we just go back for a second and just talk about that, like, that kayfabe retcon?
Where she's like, that's not my truth?
Yeah, that's not my truth. That's someone else's truth. Because that was clearly my first draft, like, attempt at doing this. And now I need to like retroactively pretend like I never did that because it wouldn't make any sense if I was like, it would just be inconsistent with my entire identity and my whole grift if I had at one point been like possessed by some different demon and it was completely like incongruous with my current ideology. So I have to like just be like, no, that's somebody else's demon possession entity that embodies them. You must be thinking of Judy, fucking water bore Knight.
Some critics of Knight have said that it's possible that she has multiple personality disorder and that these alternate personas are fractured elements of her psyche. However, I just find that really hard to believe, and I think she's just a good old-fashioned sideshow huckster. That's
such a weird conspiracy theory. That's like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like Occam's razor, guys. Like, whoa, she goes up there and she like that character's too good. She can't be acting. She must have a split personality disorder, which isn't even actually like a real thing. That's like a TV show version of what an actual split personality disorder is. Like you don't just like become like a fucking ancient demon or whatever. But like, she's not just pretending to like trick people into giving her money. She has a split personality disorder. That's such a weird, that's like the Raising the Allosaur, how there's all those people who are like criticizing, the documentary and they're just like, this documentary is bullshit. This is fake. the whole thing about how dinosaurs are only 1,000 years old is real. And that allosaur is only 1,000 years old. And it was killed in the biblical flood that Noah's Ark was made for. But that specific thing is bullshit.
I think there's no better example of what bullshit Jay-Z Knight slings than this footage, which we're about to watch. We've watched this previously on the show for the QAnon epic, but I feel like we have to watch it here so we can get the full context of what a bullshit artist she is.
Yeah, just to quickly recap. We'll be getting to this later, but in the QAnon series that Dave and Andrew did, spoiler alert, but Jay-Z Knight eventually gets into some QAnon type stuff later on in life. And so this clip was played just to give context to who Jay-Z Knight was during the QAnon series.
Ramtha doesn't like the hair.
He gets into his face.
This is Jay-Z Knight on the Merv Griffin show.
On your entity.
I don't call on him. It's a matter of me becoming aligned and becoming at peace and not being nervous.
Okay.
And once I do
Are you
that...
all right?
Am I all right?
Yeah. Are you nervous?
Well, I've never been on your show before.
Oh.
Okay.
See how comfortable it is?
Yes, it's fabulous. So,
Dog trainer energy.
We'll stay quiet here.
It really can't be described how weird it is to watch this. Like you're hearing this and it's already weird, but like you gotta see this. Like this is one of the strangest performances I've ever seen.
She's just sitting there rocking back and forth.
She doesn't try to be like mystical or come off as elegant. She like goes for just the weirdest, goofiest performance you could possibly imagine.
It's like if Jar Jar Binks was a cult leader.
Yeah.
She's rocking back and forth. She's stretching her arms out.
She does that same thing every time. Every time she becomes Ramtha, she like stands up and then like picks one foot up and then the other one and then like sits down like she's sitting in a throne, and then she kind of like picks her one foot and the other up again.
Indeed.
Indeed, beloved master. You are well this day in your time?
Yes, thank you. Sit down here.
God, it's so cringy.
Jay-Z Knight is like, she got rejected from the Groundlings, and she was just like, this is her whole career was just trying to get back at the Groundlings for not liking her weird mystical warrior character that she auditioned with.
The tube.
To capture a moment forever.
You were a little tough to wake up today.
This was already talked about in the QAnon series, but this is the smoking gun that Jay-Z Knight is fake.
You can't just like look at somebody and know that this is an idiot.
I mean, you and I can, but there are some people out there, obviously, that believe this because there's a whole fucking cult. But this is the smoking gun that nobody, if they were operating in good faith, could deny that this proves that she is faking it. Because I just stopped it right as he said it, but he said something about how he said you were sleeping. He said something like that, like you were sleeping. You used the word sleeping, and then this is what she says.
Were you sleeping when we got to you?
Wake up.
Were you sleeping?
What is slumber, entity?
So Ramtha does not know what the concept of slumber is. He doesn't know what the concept of sleep is. And yet, when Merv Griffin said, "Were you sleeping?" even though Ramtha doesn't know what sleeping is, he apparently still knew what a synonym for sleeping was and said, "What is slumber, entity?" And he also said, "Wake up." So he said, "Were you sleeping?" And then Ramtha says, "Wake up?" And then he says, "Yeah, were you sleeping?" And then he says, "What is slumber, entity?" So how the fuck would Ramtha know that slumber, sleeping, and wake up are related terms if they don't know what sleeping is?
Because she's a sideshow huckster bullshit fuckhead. And she's just like riffing. That's why.
And that's exactly what it is. That's why I said the groundlings thing, because this is terrible improv. This is terrible 80s groundlings improv.
Awake at all times.
At all times.
Where are you when you're not here?
Would you like to see?
No.
Why would you not want to see?
Well, it might not be the kind of place I want to hang out in. You know? I'm very happy here. My little studio, my little couch.
It is a wondrous place here, isn't it?
And you're my first 35,000-year-old guest.
To that which is called I, entity B, an enigma, and what is 35,000 years old?
Our anthropologists today tell us that 35 years ago, people didn't have brains like they have today. They had little, small... To the evolution of man, the brain has evolved. So it is great to know that somebody 35,000 years ago had such good command of the language.
Master, even before my time they did so. To that which is termed, is it why indeed your scientists, as they are termed, they have not found the great civilizations yet. They will.
Your home was Atlantis?
That was a place that which I lived, but I was a pilgrim from a land called Mu.
Like I said, it's the goofiest fucking performance you could possibly imagine. Like the idea that this works and people buy into this, like I said before, it really is just that dichotomy between how normal she seems, her performance as a normal, non-crazy person helps to sell this character. Because if she was also like eccentric and weird in her normal life, you would just be like, yeah, this is bullshit. Like this is a fake character. But there's something about the interplay between those two things that sells it to people.
This all sounds crazy, right? This all sounds like blatant bullshit. Well, in 1987, there were a lot of people who thought otherwise. Here's another excerpt from the previously heard 1987-2020 piece on Jay-Z Night.
People who beg to differ.
When Jay-Z Night comes out and she is Ramtha, it's no longer Jay-Z Night for me. When Ramtha speaks, there is such love in his
Rachel
voice.
Todd, hey, what's up?
You can see the love coming out of Jay-Z's eyes.
And there is love in their eyes in return. They are transfixed.
Rachel Todd, I can fix you.
A blend of Eastern mysticism and Western pop philosophy with a large dose of theatrics. The medium has a message. God exists in everyone. Man is divine and the master of his own destiny.
Who needs to be worshipped? Indeed, you do. And who needs to save your hide? You do. And indeed, who can answer your prayers? You do.
That may not sound especially profound, but true believers flock to hear it at $400 apiece. It's $1,500 for weekend retreats. There are often so many people, the Ramtha organization can earn up to $200,000 for a single appearance. And if you can't come to Ramtha, Ramtha will come to you.
And you're my first 35,000-year-old guest.
And what is 35,000 years old?
Promotion like this has boosted the Ramtha mailing list to over 23,000 names, and it's growing by more than 100 a week. There's a popular line of video and audio tapes. But what really focused national attention on Ramtha is Shirley MacLaine. MacLaine's latest film chronicles her belief in mysticism. So do her books. One of the actress's bestsellers identifies Ramtha as her spiritual guide, and the actress still keeps a horse at Jay-Z's ranch. MacLaine refused to talk to 2020 about Jay-Z Night, but she's only one of many celebrities who've been involved with Ramtha. They include Philip Michael Thomas, Mike Farrell, Richard Chamberlain, and Dynasty's Linda Evans.
Oh my God.
Tubbs
followed
Tubbs from Miami Vice. Tubbs.
They're enlightened masters, and thank
I would peg Crockett as a Jay-Z Night follower, but Tubbs? Crockett for sure is a follower of
Crockett's just idiosyncratic, man. He just kept a fucking crocodile on his houseboat named Elvis. He wasn't into some crazy shit. He was going through a divorce. He was just sleeping with his best friend who was on the force as a female cop. But he wasn't a crazy motherfucker. Not like Tubbs, who's out here just like, what's up, Jay-Z Knight?
Tubbs believed in fucking that. The thing we just saw, or the thing we just listened to. Tubbs! And Shirley MacLaine.
Tubbs and Shirley MacLaine, bro.
Shirley MacLaine, your name is too. It's too much of an institution. You're not supposed to be in this. That's like if somebody was. Well, that's a bad example, I guess, because like that really is a thing. I was gonna say that's like if like Alec Baldwin like was a QAnon follower, but like Stephen Baldwin is a QAnon follower, so never mind, I guess. My own joke was not even absurd enough to not be a real thing. The idea that a 35,000-year-old like magical being would like in their omnipotent majesty and their power would like embody this person's like possess this person and come into our world to deliver their wisdom to planet Earth, that would result in them just being like, you have to believe in yourself. Power of positive thinking. Buy my videotapes. Like, the idea that a fucking magical Atlantean spirit would just be like, yes, some vague Tony Robbins bullshit. $19.99 for my latest VHS tape. It's so ridiculous.
It's crazy too. Like basically the only doctrine or like tenets that Ramtha imparts are these. I mean, it's like a lot of like bullshit. Like, oh, we're gonna take some like Eastern mysticism, some kind of Christian love thy neighbor stuff, and then like you're saying, like a lot of self-actualization shit, and just kind of roll it all together. And it's Ramtha. But the only like 4 real codified tenets are these things that she calls like the 4 beliefs, and one of them, the number 1 is the statement, you are God. The second one is the directive to make the known the unknown. I don't know what that means. Number 3 is the concept that consciousness and energy create the nature of reality. Okay? All right. And the fourth one is the challenge to conquer yourself.
I love all those Iron Maiden albums.
Yeah. Yeah. And basically, like, all of these things are kind of peddled and leveraged to gain immortality. That's kind of the whole hook of the cult, was like, you follow Ramtha's teachings and you get to be immortal. And this is a clip of Jay-Z Knight talking as Ramtha about immortality.
Is it possible to have mind over matter? Baby, the brain is king. The body is the kingdom. Yes. How long will that take to happen? Long enough for it to be the mainstay of your personality.
Oh man, you can see this is everything all the clips we were watching before were all from like the 80s, and this is like more recent. I don't know what.
This is from a documentary that was made called What the Bleep Do We Know?
She's much older. She's in her like 60s, it looks like. And she is tired of doing Ramtha. Like, she is tired of it. You can see it. It's all gone.
Yeah, it's now mellowed out to just kind of like annoyed uncle at the barbecue.
She's over it. Like, she was over Ramtha like 10 years ago, but it's just her whole empire is just based on this, and she's just in a prison of her own making at this point.
Those great thunderstorms. We have tapped yet let a third of its ability. If we lived entirely the wholeness of our brain, which would require the wholeness of our DNA be activated, we would become the legends of old, the immortals.
I really believe that the body wants to heal itself, and the limits are in our own minds of what we believe is possible. I think so much more is possible than we appreciate.
Everyone's DNA, they use less than a third of the DNA. Did you know that there are immortal genes?
She's just stopped doing it now.
She dropped the accent.
DNAs? Did you know that you have the DNA to grow any part of your body, to change it any way you want to? Did you know you have the DNA of humanity? Did you know that you can turn...
Also, she's gesturing with like an old grandpa pipe.
This is so ridiculous.
Did you know
It's amazing. It's amazing.
that you can tap your DNA to not only make you immortal, but reverse your aging?
Did you know that if you go to sleep at night and you have a dream that you ate a giant marshmallow, that when you wake up in the morning, your pillow will be gone? Did you know that if you sneeze with your eyes open, your eyeballs will pop out of your head? Did you know that Paul from the Wonder Years is actually Marilyn Manson?
As the Ramtha empire grew and spread, Jay-Z Knight would distribute newsletters and tapes proclaiming apocalyptic messages of the beaches collapsing and the oceans rising.
Plagues and drought and tidal waves and more.
In these days to come, one should leave that which is called the beaches and seek higher ground. It would be well advised, in the greatest of wisdom, to pack your belongings and go somewhere else.
Well, many of the true believers are taking that advice to heart. Now, Ramtha says that the Pacific Northwest will be safe from all those disasters. So in the past year or two, hundreds of people, upwards of 1,500 by one count, have suddenly left everything behind. Their families, their businesses, just left everything and moved to places like Northern California, Oregon, and here in Washington State. This is Cheryl McNaughton. She moved to Yelm, Washington, right near Jay-Z Knight. After falling in with Ramtha, McNaughton divorced her multimillionaire husband, left her home in Hawaii, came here with her children and her new boyfriend.
Ramtha was a door. I walked through it. I changed my life. I am happy because of me. He gave me that experience.
But it's a bitter experience for many of those left behind. We heard stories from all over the country, like the East Coast, where there was the elderly man whose wife of 45 years got into Ramtha, and then last Thanksgiving suddenly cleaned out their bank account and moved to the Northwest. And we talked to the woman here in Los Angeles. Just last summer, her husband got a Ramtha videotape and started watching it over and over again.
He became obsessed with the idea that the world was going to end. He began giving away our furniture. We had just bought a house. He put the house up for foreclosure. He let his business go, and he moved up to an area near the Sequoias.
He finally came home just recently, but Tina's still shaken.
What is Ramtha doing to families like yours?
Tearing them apart. I don't know what she did to my husband, but he's not the same he was. You know, he's just not the same person he was a few months ago.
Those folks, you know, they point the finger at you. They blame you. They think you're bad news, that you've lured their loved ones away.
You know, but you know, what would you expect them to say? I'm so thankful she took my wife away, and it's all her fault. It could never be mine, you know. People don't want to take responsibility that if that person left, could it be because they weren't happy anymore?
To grasp what Knight says, it helps to look at what some of her followers think of as their Bible, the Ramtha White Book. It outlines a philosophy where reality is whatever you want it to be, where there's no right, no wrong, even murder is not wrong or evil. But Jay-Z says it helps to believe in reincarnation.
If you only believe that you only are going to, you're born and you die, and there's no afterlife, murder is definitely wrong. If you believe in a continuation of life, that's a different story. In a divinity, if we're...
Wait a minute. Is she saying that murder is fine?
Yeah, that's one of her whole things, because it's like, it's basically like, one of the like core tenets of the Ramtha shtick is that nothing is wrong unless it prevents the individual from progressing to the next level of the reincarnation ladder. So like you can just basically it's like a self-inoculation against anybody saying like, how could you steal all this money from your followers or whatever? And she's like, it's not going to stop me from being reincarnated into the next level, so it's fine.
So she was like the OG of like trying to get the purge going.
Yeah.
It's like entities every year at the same date. All crime is legal.
What is the purge, entity?
I wrote this screenplay in the 80s. I'm going to sue you for arbitration.
She's the real Sophia Stewart. Yeah.
I like how when they were asking her about the tearing families apart, her response was just like, listen, honey, maybe he's just not that into you. That was her rationalization of it.
However, despite legions of followers and a massive palatial estate built with the spoils of her preaching, none of these apocalyptic predictions ever came true.
No fucking shit.
And yet, the craziest thing is that Jay-Z Knight had a cover band, Penny Torres. So not only was there just Jay-Z Knight doing this channeling thing, starting a cult, preaching end time, post-apocalyptic bullshit, but this woman, Penny Torres, that we're about to watch this clip from, just looked at that and was like, I'm going to do that too. And her like impression, the like demon that she channels, or whatever, the person, the ancient past person that she channels, it's just the Ramtha voice. Like, it's just entity. It's just that.
I would love it if it was just like Christopher Walken or something like Jay-Z Knight. Jay-Z Knight was a failed Groundlings comedian. This person is a failed like stand-up impressionist. So she's just like, I'm going. It's like a terrible Christopher Walken impression.
Murder is legal as long,
but I still want to do the purge. That's still part of my thing.
Rule number 1, the statement is you are God. The directive is to make the known the unknown.
Preaches that you are God, that you are the greatest thing on earth, and you can't do wrong.
Channeling Share the Spirit.
I am here to be straight with you. I am here to tell you as it is upon your plane.
She even does indeed. She has
the same hairstyle and the same clothes.
Yeah.
Jay-Z Knight, like, her whole thing is like the alter ego, where like when she's normal, she has like an 80s looking, like kind of teased hairdo. And then when she becomes Ramtha, she puts it back in this kind of like this ponytail that it almost kind of like changes the shape of her head, which I think is part of her whole thing, where she really kind of like makes herself kind of, it's almost like the Andrew WK thing, where if you can go a long way to like make yourself look different by changing your hairstyle and doing different facial features and physicality. And she puts her hair back in this ponytail that's kind of like, it's not up high, it's kind of like lower. And she does the same exact ponytail, and she's wearing the same vaguely kind of like Eastern looking robe thing.
Her body to make room for the spirit Mafu.
Mafu?
Mafu. Not Ramtha. Mafu.
It's just an exact copy.
Beloved masters, indeed.
This is the voice of Mafu, a leper from 1st century Pompeii.
I am what is called the awakening of a dream. I am the realization of what you be.
God bless you, Dr. People. How are you this day of your time as you create time to exist?
Bashar is an alien from outer space.
And by letting his
All kinds of spirits speak through channels, but their message is basically the same. You are God, you can create your own reality. It's a message thousands want to hear.
I'm sold on this. They're not grifters. I have no moral issue with this. We need to do this. I want to live this life. Please. I am fully sold on this now. I want to live this life. This looks like just the best thing, the best life you could have. You just get to go around being a ridiculous character and just be the goofiest fucking idiot alive. And then just still people like fucking worship you and think this is real. Even when there's literally another person that you're clearly just copying, like verbatim, doing the same exact impression. And yet people still think that you are a real thing.
Yeah, I don't have the answer either, man. It's amazing, right?
That we talk about this a lot on the show. The idea, we talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And then like the tippy top of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the like Jim Carrey, like talking about like painting the color of the world or whatever. And then there's a tippy top above that is like, I am so rich and bored and just like, I've got no real issues in my life and I'm just like depressed because my life is boring and I just like have no real problems. So I'm just like atrophying. My mind is just atrophying, that I'll just allow myself in bad faith to believe somebody's weird demon possession character that's like a shitty groundling's reject. And I'm just so bored with my life that I'm just going to allow myself to be indoctrinated into a cult where our whole thing is that we think this is real, even though nobody truly believes this is real because it's so obviously bullshit.
Knight was known for selling horses to affluent cult members and claiming that it was the will of Ramtha. She sold one for $250,000. This crescendoed with Knight using Ramtha's name in investment schemes that swindled people out of millions of dollars that never seemed to materialize into any great assets. And thus, she received a cease and desist order from the state of Washington, which she voluntarily complied with. So basically, she like tried to Bernie Madoff a bunch of motherfuckers by claiming, oh, Ramtha wants you to invest in this investment scheme. We're going to pool all our money and we're going to buy stocks or whatever. It's the will of Ramtha. And she literally got millions of dollars doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I don't, maybe there's other examples of this and I'm just not thinking of them off the top of my head, but this is one of the only ones that I've seen where there's a cult that's a combination between a doomsday cult and then like one of those vaguely just like mystical, like self-help guru bullshit cults, and then a prosperity scheme.
Yeah, totally. And so she got all of this money this way and never returned any investment to anyone. And then the government was like, yeah, you can't fucking do that. Either give the money back or we're going to put you in jail. And she was like, yeah, my bad. Here's the money back. Here's the money back.
What is the FCC entity?
What is the NASDAQ entity? What is the Dow Jones entity?
What is money laundering entity?
What does wire fraud entity?
What is 20 years in prison entity?
What is 20 to life entity?
What is orange is the new black entity?
I know not of this perjury entity. And the craziest thing is it only gets more insane from here.
It's a cassette. It's an indie rock album. It's a full-color original comic book. It's Simple Code by Mystery Treehouse, the world's first hybrid album and comic. That we know of after doing like a 2-minute Google search. For fans of music by Weezer, Fountains of Wayne, Andrew WK, Say Anything, and late 90s pop punk.
We made a million dreams light up all of their screens. Don't sweat it, we'll get it, we can.
No tape player, no problem. It's also a badass action comic full of blood and gore about two boy detectives and their space demon and robot roommates battling a horde of death metal zombies. But that's not all you get. Every album comes with a QR code. Scan it to get a digital version of the album and comic, bonus music, a track-by-track breakdown of the story behind each song, an unreleased episode of the Deep Cuts podcast, plus more. All this can be yours for one easy payment of $12.99. Go to deepcutspod.com and click the shop to get yours now.
Act 2, Creating the Future. As Jay-Z Knight's superstardom waned through the 1990s, she was hit with multiple lawsuits, some more laughable than others. Believe it or not, Knight sued a woman in Berlin named Julie Revell for
leaving her hanging in psychic limbo.
Knight claimed that the woman, who was also a medium, had channeled Ramtha and stolen him from her. The case was brought to the Supreme Court in Vienna, and after 5 years of working its way through the lower appellate courts, they decided in her favor, giving her the copyright to Ramtha and also awarding her $800 in psychic damages.
What the fuck are psychic damages? What is that? What is a psychic damage from a legal standpoint?
Amazing. She sued somebody because they took her imaginary best friend, and the courts legally said you can't steal an imaginary best friend. Give the best friend back.
But the funny thing about that is that it's like it's a straightforward copyright lawsuit that is like being executed within a kayfabe alternate reality by everybody involved. Like, she's just suing this person for using her copyright, but it's playing out like she's suing her for kidnapping her psychic spirit guide. And the courts are just like, if you want me to say it like that, sure, but give the lady back her psychic monster.
Her Atlantean BFF.
I just want to know what psychic damages are.
Do you think psychic damages are like, because in the States we have emotional damage and people get sued for emotional damage a lot. But do you think in Vienna, like in the German legal system, psychic damages are emotional damages? It's just phrased differently, but she knew that.
It was like a coincidence, and she just like, it was like one of those like situations where like two people just are having different conversations, but they think that they're talking about the same thing. And so in her mind, she's like, wow, they're giving me psychic damages? Like they fully bought it. Oh my God. I need to move to Vienna. Fuck Washington.
I kind of hope that's what happened.
This is actually what the Billy Joel song Vienna is about.
Strangely, also what the song Uptown Girl is about as well.
Oh yeah, actually every Billy Joel song is about Judy Zebra Knight.
Judy Zebra Knight is actually Billy Joel's ex-wife.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was his muse. He wrote every song about her.
I was Josh Safdie's muse when he wrote Uncut Jam.
Whatever. I was Billy Joel's muse whenever he wrote Turnstiles. See, the beauty, the wonderful part of that joke is that it requires this weird bridge between Jay-Z Knight into this Billy Joel discussion. It requires the knowledge of that meme that's
from TikTok,
currently popular, and then it also requires an encyclopedic knowledge of Billy Joel's discography. That is a rare joke. That is a rare Pepe in the wild.
I don't even know enough about Billy Joel's like catalog to keep this bit going. I want to be like, I was Billy Joel's muse when he wrote, I don't know any other Billy Joel songs other than Uptown Girl. Like, I want to keep the bit going, but I don't. I genuinely don't know any other.
I was Billy Joel's muse when he wrote The Stranger.
He didn't write We Didn't Start the Fire, right?
He did.
Okay, see, I should have gone with it. I'm just picturing Jay-Z Knight in Uncut Gems as her being like, what is the weekend entity?
I want to live in this world that is just it's Jay-Z Knight and Billy Joel and whatever her name is, Fox or whatever, Kanye West's ex-girlfriend now, and I want to live in this world where that just is populated by this internal logic.
In a hard pivot, this is going to get really dark.
I mean, as we want it. We want it to hard turn here. We want to go from Billy Joel bits to just like fucking people dying.
That's literally what's going to happen. So here we go. However, the saddest of the cases that Knight was involved in was aptly titled Knight v. Knight, which lasted from 1992 to 1995. In it, Jay-Z Knight was sued by her ex-husband, Jeff Knight, who accused her of stealing 3 years of his life. How did she do this, you ask? Because she convinced him to postpone medical treatment for his HIV infection, telling him that Ramtha would cure him. The court decided against him. However, he died of his AIDS prior to the appeals court decisions.
To me, it's not about the money. It's about standing up for myself, taking back my power and standing up to her and to this farce of a teaching that is just a money-making business for her. If I was to die tomorrow, I would know that I had done something to make some people wake up and realize that they're involved in a very dangerous, very evil, corrupt thing. And they need to look at that. They need to realize.
Let's see, it's the end of March 1992.
This is Jeff Knight, who...
I'm Joe Zimhart, and I'm here with Jeff Knight. And we're here to discuss a little bit about Jeff's experience with the Ramtha organization, which he was intimately involved with in more ways than one. So let's go back to, when did you begin your involvement? What year was that when you first encountered?
That was in 1980.
In 1980?
Yeah, spring of 1980.
Yeah. I just wanted to briefly go over that. What happened? Describe your first impression of who Ramtha was. How were you introduced to it, and the first meeting with Jay-Z?
She called me in regards to my horse business and invited me to a seminar that was being held in the Beverly Hills area. So I went to the event that she was having there as a guest of hers. At first offer, I was like, I don't have any real interest in this, but I was looking to sell horses, so I thought, well, I'll go and see what this is all about. And when I got to the event, she came in after I got there, arrived a little bit late, and walked right over to me and introduced herself and said, you're Jeff Knight. Yeah, and she obviously knew who I was because she had seen my picture in an ad that she had got my phone number from, and she was real attentive to me at that event. And then she proceeded to talk about the Ram to the whole audience, and then did her little intro prior to the Dialogue 1 that I was attending, the beginner event at that time. And then the Ram was channeled 2 different times through the course of the day. And when he talked to me, after the first section of when he talked to me, Jay-Z proceeded to interpret what he had said to me about going over the mountain, and in this lifetime, in my past lifetimes I had not gone over the mountain and left the security of the family and all those things that are secure in the knowingness of what you're familiar with, and in this lifetime I would achieve that and would find ultimate happiness. And after he left the body and she came into the room to kind of mingle with the people, she came over to me and interpreted for me what that meant, that I would someday leave my family and go to an unfamiliar place and do great things.
Where was this again?
This was in California.
California, okay.
Yeah.
And how many people were at that dialogue then?
Maybe 15 to 20 people.
So it's a small group.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, I was curious at what point, just based on that intro of just like, this lady called me up and I thought she was kind of fucking crazy and I had no interest in this, but I just wanted to sell some horses. I wanted to know where that transitioned into, I am marrying this person.
Yeah. Well, the other interesting thing about it, too, is that he's still obviously, like, even though he's suing her and she literally is killing him or contributed to killing him, he still speaks with the programmed language. You know, we've talked about this a lot of, like...
She channeled the Ram. Yeah, he was... Yeah, the way that cults, like, change your vocabulary so that you can only speak to other cult members because they're the only ones that know what you're talking about, and it is a form, it serves as a way to alienate you from the outside world because you can no longer communicate with anybody else because you speak an entirely different language, essentially. And you can kind of get a sense of that because you can tell this person that's interviewing him, they're just like, yeah, I don't want to know the details of all this shit. I just want to know, like, the part where, you know, you're suing her. Like, what, like, you're telling me this meticulous retelling of this whole thing. Like, let's just get to the actual important stuff. Like, you can get a sense of that disconnect.
Knight also refused to attend court as a witness in a case involving a 15-year-old who claimed rape against 2 students of the Ramtha School of Enlightenment. The 15-year-old girl had written a letter to Knight which mentioned that Wayne Allen Geiss, her dancing and acting teacher, had engaged in sexual intercourse with her from 1995 to 1997. The illicit activities had also involved Ruth Beverly Martin. They had apparently told the girl that sexual intercourse would help her to relax and improve her acting ability. Knight invited the girl to a retreat at the school in late November 1999. In the retreat, Ramtha questioned the girl, her father, Geiss, and Martin. This inquiry took place on stage in front of an audience of over 800 people for about an hour. Geiss and Martin confessed to having molested the girl, and the school contacted authorities. Charged with 10 counts of first-degree sexual misconduct with a minor, Geiss and Martin pled not guilty, and the case went to trial. Prosecutors were reluctant to have Knight appear in the court due to the quote-unquote circus atmosphere that she would bring. Knight herself claimed that she had been in a trance and did not remember anything that was said during the retreat inquiry.
Man, these cult stories are fun until they aren't.
Yeah, they're really fun until it's like, fuck, this guy, like, got murdered and that girl got raped. Shit.
It always goes there.
This shit sucks.
Yeah, I hate to that's all very dark and very awful, and it feels weird to go into a funny thing. But
I'm going to do it anyway. Here we go.
The idea that character, Ramtha, that everything that we've heard, all the clips that you've listened to so far in this episode, that character got 2 guys to confess to sexual assault on stage in front of 800 people is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard.
What is pee in the vagina, entity?
I cannot imagine what that was like.
What is age of consent, entity?
And there's a part of me that just wishes there was footage because I'm so fascinated about what that could possibly have been like. Like, that character was just on stage and just, like, cajoled a confession out of 2 pedophiles. That is so fucking weird.
Yeah, it's really, really trippy.
It's not funny, but like, it's fucking bizarre to the point where it's kind of funny.
Yeah, if somebody hadn't been, like, actively damaged for the rest of their life, it would be hilarious. The problem is that they were.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking dark. But also, when you said Knight versus Knight, before it got into the horrible bleakness, I was really hoping that in the ultimate kayfabe, Jay-Z Knight, like, Ramtha was, like, suing Jay-Z Knight. And it was like a court case between Ramtha and Jay-Z Knight, and she would, like, channel Ramtha, and then he would go up on the stand and testify, and then she would turn back into Jay-Z Knight and then go and do the counter testify. That was what I was hoping it was.
I would love that. Unfortunately, that's not what happened.
Unfortunately, it was a horrible, much darker thing.
As Knight's cultural relevance diminished, her pseudo-Eastern self-help bullshit gave way to much more bizarre and fringe beliefs.
And the beings that I started to meet, Daniel, were beings from systems, the Crab Nebulae. All of these beings I was slowly integrated into meeting and understanding that, if you are an alien, you must look like us. If you don't, then you follow the criteria of evil. So my initiation over 40 years has been not only understanding the spirit, which really is our divine quality, but that is everywhere in beings everywhere. And how that body, that suit, that alien suit that they wear, which is our physical body, is really made up of whatever system, whatever planet. It's made from the clay of those planets, those systems. They breathe differently. Some don't even eat, they ingest an atmosphere. But if we take the body away from the Nordics, we take it away from the Blue Avians, we take it away from all of that, we have this ball of light, Daniel. And this ball of light is what's wearing that body. I learned that over 40 years, had lots of experiences. I had so many UFO experiences, many I documented in my book. And so when you come and take sort of a really big mind, when we get out of this little box and we start looking over here, and you take this really big mind and you bring it back to your neighbors.
All right.
Or, everything threatens religion, right? So, then
you're a heretic right off the bat.
And then, they're meeting with the government, and, it was on the front cover of the New York Times 5 different times. And so the intent was to bring it down and destroy it, because the message of behold God in everyone, that God was actually in us, that our spirit was a ball of light. It was wearing this body, and brain is computer. So emotions are to experience what we've made known. An emotional experience is a new experience. And our bodies experience the tactile expression of what we've created. And so that threatened religion. The religion threatened politics. The politics got into the media, and they went after us. And so anybody, who thought they were a champion.
Listen, unfocus your mind. Don't listen to the specifics of what she's saying, and just kind of like absorb the tonality and the general just impression. And you cannot convince me that she is not a dog trainer.
So a couple things I want to talk about before we move into this final section is that one, Jay-Z Knight is just like an open racist, and she's said like a ton of anti-Semitic shit over the years, and bad shit about all kinds of people of color.
What is Mein Kampf entity?
Like, she just fucking sucks. She's a racist, and she plays on the worst stereotypes and the worst impulses in her followers, but garbs it in this weird racist, like, I'm just an Atlantean from 35,000 years ago, and I don't see color, but also fuck those dudes over there who all happen to look the same. Like, she fucking sucks. So I just wanted to bring that point up, and that leads perfectly into the kind of final act of Jay-Z Knight that we're going to talk about, which is in 2019. She kind of had a big gust of popularity.
Shit got QAnon-y.
Yeah, she had a big gust of popularity because she started channeling and globbing on to the QAnon movement, which we talked about in some in-depth discussion in the QAnon episodes.
And now we're going to replay all 6 episodes to recap it so you understand what's happening right now.
And I don't know that we need to go super in-depth into it, but it just serves as another data point of how insidious this person is, and she's always looking for ways to ingratiate herself or find people that are weak or looking for some sort of direction. So she's always like, where's the rising tide of conspiratorial thought? Where's the rising tide of people who have money but are weak and I can take advantage of them?
Hello, entity. Did you know that Tom Hanks got Greek citizenship because it's legal to be a pedophile over there?
It's fucking bullshit. Yeah, so, this weird kind of like arc that she undergoes where she starts out as kind of like objectively saying good things just in this weird fucked up way, like saying, you should believe in yourself and you should self-actualize and go after what you want is a really positive thing to put out into the world. The issue is that it's phrased in this and garbed in this bizarre hybrid of a cult, prosperity scheme, multi-level marketing thing, religious doctrine that just like destroys people's lives. And like the harsh stuff seems to have kind of run its course, right? Like there's not a story every year now where she's involved in a murder case or a rape case because she's culturally irrelevant. Like she's run through all of the suckers.
She's JJ armed.
Yeah, totally. She's JJ armed. But yeah, what are your kind of like overall thoughts about Jay-Z Knight and the stuff that we just watched, listened to, and learned about?
Yeah, I mean, she's weirdly she's weirdly like heavily what's the term? I'm just blanking on the term. It's a very common term. She's weirdly heavily influential in the realm of like cults and like conspiracy theory movements. That's why she came up in the QAnon series, and I first sort of became aware of her researching for a different episode about a cult where the cult leader was like exclusively inspired by Jay-Z Knight and was like a follower of her for a while, and then went on to like start his own cult where he channeled a fucking spirit and basically just like copied her shtick like that other person did. And like I hazard to guess that a lot of people listening to this have never heard of Jay-Z Knight, and there's other cults and things like that you're much more aware of, Jonestown and Children of God and Charles Manson, all these really famous like cult leaders and conspiracy theory movement gurus and things like that. And like in a strange way, Jay-Z Knight is like the fucking Bob Dylan of all these people. Just like they all know of Jay-Z Knight and they were all inspired by Jay-Z Knight in ways. Not Jonestown, not those specific ones I mentioned, but a lot of like modern like grifters. It all weirdly goes back to Jay-Z Knight. She kind of like created the playbook of like fucking weird conspiracy grifts. So, if back in that QAnon series, although the sort of timeline of events was traced through and it went back to the origins of QAnon and of a lot of these conspiracy theory movements, it kind of approached that from more of a historical sense of like the ideologies and the like historical events that occurred that led to things. And it didn't really focus on like movements or like specific figures that kind of, it didn't really go into that. But that all being said, you have like Jay-Z Knight to thank for like a lot of the modern day conspiracy grifter movements that you see. Like she kind of created the template for it in a lot of ways. And she's the classic example of these types of people. She is exclusively motivated by making money. She doesn't care whose lives she affects with her, the things that she does, the rhetoric she spreads. She has no remorse for people that have been hurt or died in the wake of this fucking thing. All she cares about is making money and deflecting blame or responsibility for anything that she does. It's very ironic that in that interview where she's talking about the people whose husbands left them or whatever, that she says that some people just don't want to take responsibility for their own actions or whatever, because like she and people like her are just the epitome of people who will never take responsibility for their actions. They will always deflect. They will always blame everything else on everybody around them. And that's kind of what a cult is, right? That's like the cornerstone of what a cult is like, none of this is my fault. It's everybody else's fault. this secular world, or this world that's overtaken by thetans, or this world that's full of these suppressive people, or this world that's full of these people that don't believe in this specific event where the comet's going to come by in a UFO. Like the base root of what a cult is nothing is my fault. Everything is everybody else's fault. She kind of created the modern template for that. So, fuck Jay-Z Knight. Fuck Judy Zebra Knight. Also, did she get her name from her husband?
Yeah.
So she took his name.
Her last name is Hampton, or her original last name was Hampton.
Yeah, but I just figured she made up the name Knight. Like, I'm sure she made up Zebra. So I thought the whole name was just invented.
Yeah, no, she got it from Jeff Knight.
That's really dark in a way that is almost darker than the rest of the story. That like not only did she like effectively kill this guy, but also like she just took his name and carried it on after like.
You know what she is, man? She's like and this term gets thrown around a lot, like as a pejorative, but she's a vampire in a very tangible, literal way. Like she grasps onto people, sucks their life dry, and then just like discards them. And she does that with like all these people.
Yeah, I almost want to say that like she literally just married that guy just to get his name.
She was just like, Knight, that's a cool name. I'll take it. I mean, I don't know that you would be that far off, honestly. She's such a psychopath. I wouldn't discount it.
Yeah. What a horrible person. These are the people that we should be angry at. I mean, I'm not saying that we excuse the actions of people that buy into these cults or whatever. Like they do bad things, and they're adults. They shouldn't just be let off the hook or whatever. But like these people are the problem.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and it's really kind of depressing looking at how much pain and suffering and like literal financial damage Jay-Z Knight has just like wrecked on people, and that she still has this compound up in Seattle, and it even though she's had all these court cases, it doesn't ever seem like justice ever really catches up with her. It just kind of is like, a minor inconvenience here or there, but there's not like a big like end. Now Jay-Z Knight is actually going to serve prison time for the horrible fucking awful things that she's done. Like such a I think that's the hardest pill for me to swallow about this whole thing. Like, yeah, it's funny that all of this stuff has happened, and yeah, it's kind of this larger than life flamboyant personality, which obviously I'm drawn to and fascinated by, and this like weaponization of kayfabe, that we talk about a lot. But the fact that there's no fall, the fact that there's no karmic justice, the fact that there's no kind of comeuppance for any of this is just such a fucking bummer. Like she talked someone out of taking life-prolonging drugs when they were HIV positive, and nothing's gonna come of that. Like there's no justice for that.
Yeah, I mean this is kind of a just incredibly bleak thing to leave off with, but. I was thinking about that earlier because I saw a TikTok video or something like that where somebody was talking about that trope that you hear from people a lot, which is like, people will, if you're a bad person, if you do bad things, like even if you like get away with it, like eventually you'll get it in the end. Like that this idea of like karmic justice that people talk about all the time, of just like, that's our idea, which I think we largely get from movies, is that like, I think I've even talked about this specific thing in another episode of that movie, The Lovely Bones, where this guy abducts this young girl and kills her, and the family is looking for her, and they never able to find her or figure out what's wrong, what happened. And the guy, this child murderer / molester or whatever he was, he like gets away with it, and he almost gets caught, and the father almost finds him, but just barely misses it and doesn't figure it out and doesn't find him. And the ghost of the girl is like trying to get her parents to figure it out and find her body and all this stuff like that. And it just, they don't. And that's kind of the conclusion of the movie. And at the very end of the movie, he's like at some truck stop and he's trying to abduct another girl, and then an icicle falls from a tree and like hits him on the head, and he falls off a cliff and dies. And it's like, even though he didn't get caught, he got his in the end or whatever. And unfortunately, I don't think that happens. I think there's some big examples of it happening, but there are so many people like Jay-Z Knight that just live their lives and they die without repercussions.
I'm Dave Baker.
And I'm Spandrew Spice.
This has been Deep Cuts. You can find me on the internet at heydavebaker.com or at xdavebakerx. Spandrew, where can people find you?
You can find me drifting through the cosmos, entity, discovering the unknown truths of our world so that I can come back and embody the frame of Dave Baker so that I can get on stage and teach you that you have to believe in yourself, and also order my new videotape for 3 easy payments of $19.99. You can learn to self-actualize. And you can't find me on the internet because I don't have social media. But if you want to pay your respects to the dear Papa Pricey, you can check out his website, dapricerights.com, where you can get his comic, Deadbolt AI Private Eye. You can also follow Deep Cuts on social media. Facebook, just search for Deep Cuts Podcast. You can join the Facebook group, Deep Cuts Podcast Facebook group, where we had a community of people who talk about cool stuff and stuff about the episodes and other things. You can also join our Discord server, Deep Cuts, or bit.ly.com/Deep Cuts Discord, where we have another community that talks about the show and other random stuff. And makes memes and all that stuff. You can follow us on Instagram at Deep Cuts Pod, TikTok at Mystery Treehouse, and you can get merch from us by going to deepcutspod.com and clicking on the shop, or going to bit.ly.com/deepcutsmerch, where you can get t-shirts and other stuff with Deep Cuts designs on it. Entity. Deep Cuts is a production by Boy Genius Media. If you'd like to find this show and others like it, please visit boygeniusmedia.com or deepcutspod.com.
If you want to join in on post-episode discussions, please join the Deep Cuts Podcast Facebook group. Finally, subscribe to our YouTube channel for additional video content.